Perfect. So a hearty welcome again to everyone, and thank you for being here on a Thursday afternoon, our very final seminar, hard to believe, of the 2025-2026 Gilbrea Annual Seminar Series. It's been a really fantastic year. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting together, or at least I am situated on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and the Haudenosaunee Nations, and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Agreement. That wampum agreement uses the symbolism of a dish to represent the territory and one spoon to represent that the people are to share the resources of the land and only take what they need. I see a number of familiar faces, but for those who might be new, the Gilbrea Seminar Series is an opportunity to exchange ideas and really to stimulate discussion amongst researchers, amongst students, community members, and older adults. And we're so excited to have Ruth Tamari here on Zoom to present her seminar titled Intergenerational Community in an Urban High-Rise, a Strategy to Address Ageism. And so for today's seminar, we'll just ask that you keep yourself on mute during the presentation to avoid any background noise. Ruth has about maybe 40-ish minutes or so to present, and then we'll have ample time, 15, 20 minutes for questions and some answers and conversation together. And during the question and answer time, you are more than welcome to type in your answer or type in your question, sorry, in the little chat box, or if you feel so moved, you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly to Ruth, and I'll help to moderate the Q&A session. So without further ado, just a bit of information about our esteemed seminar speaker today. Ruth completed her MA research in our very own Department of Health, Aging, and Society, and is currently a PhD student in social gerontology in the Department of Health, Aging, and Society. Ruth is also the Gilbrea Center's Carl Kananen Graduate Award recipient, and that's why she's giving the seminar today. Her doctoral work examines intergenerational community in diverse urban neighborhoods with a focus on ageism and social isolation. And prior to returning to academia, she's worn many hats. She's worked as a geriatric clinician, an aging in place consultant, and transitions coach, excuse me. And she is the author of The Invitation, Rich and Raw Conversations About Aging, Death, and Dying, and that came out in 2017. So without further ado, I'll ask you all to join me in welcoming Ruth to our virtual stage. Thanks so much, Ruth.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Equity, for setting this up. It's an honor to be here. I want to welcome everyone and to give everyone a bit of a heads up that I'm going to be presenting both using this presentation that you see and my hard copy notes. So it's going to be a bit of a hybrid presentation. Bear with me. And so I'm here to present my master's research study, and I'd like to begin with acknowledgements. So Nicole generously and graciously presented land acknowledgements. And I too want to acknowledge the lands on which the study took place and on which we gather today, because this is both Hamilton and Toronto and the Indigenous lands. So I want to acknowledge the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement bound the peoples to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, and all newcomers, have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I also want to acknowledge people who supported me. There are many people who supported this research study. I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation to Mr. Carl Kinnunen, Ms. Beatrice Camp, and Dr. Andrew Joshi for their generosity in having established this meaningful student award. Huge thanks to the Galbraith Center for Studies in Aging and Dr. Nicole Dahmer for your support. This study would not have happened if it were not for the community research participants from this high-rise building. Thank you for your generosity, your thoughtfulness, and your enthusiasm. Special thanks to my master's supervisor and advisor, Dr. Christina Sinding, for your support, guidance, and mentorship during this research study. And finally, thanks to the many mentors, senior mentors, who inspire and model community leadership and intergenerational collaboration. So, what brought me to this research topic? Since the mid-90s, I've worked to address social isolation with older adults. First, as a clinician in geriatric healthcare, then as a consultant with community organizations focusing on aging in place, and as a co-founder of the Neighbor Network, which is a volunteer organization of older adult community leaders in Toronto. In the meantime, I have aged from a young adult to middle-aged and soon to become an older adult, and have had my own questions about what it means to be an older adult and the contributions of older adults to society. And then ageism was declared a social determinant of health, and the pieces of the puzzle started to come together for me. In 2021, the World Health Organization published an article in the medical journal The Lancet announcing ageism as a social determinant of health. Social determinants of health are non-medical factors that influence health outcomes and include the conditions in which people are born, live, work, play, and grow up. They include income, socioeconomic class, physical environments, and racism. The map that you see here was included in the article and shows Canada in gray, indicating there was no data available in 2021 about ageist attitudes in Canada. The authors recommended 3 evidence-based strategies to decrease ageism: education, policy and law, and intergenerational contact. My study focuses on this latter strategy, and I will elaborate on concepts including ageism, intergenerational contact, and social isolation, then present the research literature before sharing the specifics of our study. In 1969, physician and gerontologist Robert Butler defined ageism as a process of systemic stereotyping and discrimination against people because of age. In addition to self-directed, other-directed, and structural ageism, Ayalon and Tesh describe ageism in terms of 3 levels. The micro level, which is focused on the individual, their thoughts, emotions, and actions. The meso level, which is concerned with groups, organizations, and communities. And the macro level, which relates to cultural norms or societal values. Krug and colleagues discuss age segregation as a form of ageism. They suggest that when people are categorized by age, it can divide and segregate individuals with negative impacts such as social isolation and loneliness. Intergenerational contact is an intervention that works to reduce ageism against older people and younger people alike, specifically in neighborhoods and communities. Intergenerational contact was first defined as interactions between children and older adults. However, in the past 10 years, this definition has shifted to include interactions between people of all ages, including young and middle-aged adults. In Canada, Lagasse and colleagues reported that intergenerational programs were coordinated and funded by community-based senior serving organizations, governments, and universities or schools. If you look at this chart, the top row indicates the intergenerational programs. Most of these programs are structured and short-term, and there was no research literature available on non-kin intergenerational community in neighborhoods in Canada. 5 academic journal articles discussed non-kin intergenerational community in Hong Kong, Japan, and the United States. Although all 5 articles use the term intergenerational in their title, none had participants from all generations in their study. And 2 community-based organizations in British Columbia, Happy Cities and Hey Neighbor Network, offered prescriptive information about the structural supports that may promote the development of intergenerational community, specifically for multi-unit housing. These include property management, housing operators, resident-led initiatives, and municipal government. Social isolation is defined as an objective state in which an individual does not have enough interaction with others and when they do not have people in their lives to contact, particularly if they are in need of help or are ill. A global study found that knowing at least 6 neighbors is associated with reduced loneliness, and a study in Switzerland showed that daily contact with neighbors facilitated stronger attachment to the neighborhood and reduced loneliness. Although the word community is used in daily language with its meaning inherently understood, it remains nevertheless difficult to define. In their discussion of community development, Husted and Ganowitz point to 3 factors which are integral to community: the structure of community, the shared meaning within the community, and power in the community, with their related conceptual frameworks: structural functionalism, symbolic interactionism, and political economy theory. My brief master's research study set out to explore intergenerational contact in an urban high-rise building. I wanted to learn how intergenerational initiatives begin with neighbors, how are they nourished and sustained for the long term, what value and benefits do they offer individuals, and how does each generational cohort participate in the intergenerational community. Through my social network, I learned of a high-rise building that had intergenerational events in Toronto. I emailed my contact, it was a resident who was also a board member, and scheduled a phone conversation to discuss the purpose of the research project and her potential role in the research study. Our conversation confirmed the building had sustained intergenerational community for 9 years and included a 10-year-old on their social committee. I thought, wow. We clarified the purpose, timeline, and recruitment for the study, and she decided she would participate as a community researcher too. Some information about the building itself. It's a high-rise condominium building located in North Toronto near the intersection of Yonge and Highway 401. It was built in 1990. There are 23 floors and 325 units. There's a wide variety of shared spaces, including party room, outdoor patio, multipurpose room, and library. The building is within walking distance of the subway and many local amenities, such as a mall, supermarkets, public library, movie theaters, and cafes. It has a board of directors, board liaisons, and several committees with resident volunteers, including the social committee, an environmental greening committee, and a building upkeep committee. In 2018, the building conducted an informal resident scan to understand the profile of residents for planning purposes and to better meet the needs of the residents. This was supplemented with information from property management and their personal knowledge of the residents. So this was done by residents themselves. They learned that 26% of households had seniors, 30% were families, 36% were other, including single adults and adult couples. In terms of occupancy, 70% were owners, and there were approximately 20 languages spoken. The time and energy it took for residents to complete this project can give us a sense of their commitment to their neighbors and their community. For recruitment, I met with the board member and a board liaison to consider 3 to 5 potential participants who either planned, implemented, or attended intergenerational events and represented diversity in terms of gender, ethnicity, age, and religion. The responsiveness by the residents was immediate and enthusiastic. They wanted to participate in the study. And in the end, we decided to select a total of 9 participants, so almost double the original number we had hoped for. This was a qualitative research project using community-based participatory research methodology. There was one focus group in July of 2024 with 8 participants. One interview was conducted in August with a community research participant who was unavailable for the focus group. I conducted a preliminary thematic analysis, and in October of 2024, I met with 7 of the participants for a follow-up feedback session to review and discuss the initial themes with them and get their perspective on it. I interviewed the former property manager who was there as intergenerational initiatives began. He continues to be in touch with board members and residents, and he emphasized these lasting connections. The new property manager continues to provide support and attend events. The community research participants themselves ranged in age from 10 to over 80 years. Everyone had lived in the building for at least 2 years. All community researchers were owners, and there were no tenants who participated in the study. Most participants were Caucasian, 7 were female, and the participants held a range of roles in their intergenerational community, with the majority having roles in the social committee. So how did intergenerational initiatives begin in this building? The profile of residents shifted from retirees to families with young children. When it was built in 1990, the building residents were mostly retirees. Over the decades, more families moved into the building and neighborhood. The social committee realized that it needed to ensure that social events such as barbecues would be financially feasible for larger families with several members. Also, adult residents realized that they wanted to attend the children's holiday party and that they enjoyed it maybe even more than their adults only party. So the social committee began to plan for both intergenerational and children's events for holidays and gatherings. With the feedback from the community researchers, here are the 5 main themes from the thematic analysis. Foundational structures of intergenerational community, growing and cultivating intergenerational community, benefits and outcomes, roles of generational cohorts, and who is missing. I'm going to highlight the sub-themes and findings for each one Some of these have interesting intersections, but each have their own nuance. The first theme, foundational structures of intergenerational community, highlights the importance of structures as a foundation to sustain intergenerational contact. In this building, the structures were the property management, and specifically the property manager, the board of directors, and an age-diverse social committee, including a child. All three structures were seen as functioning well independently and with each other. The property manager noted the importance of the board of directors and committees to create a sense of community. These structures support the coordination, planning, communication, implementation, and evaluation of intergenerational initiatives and addressed issues as they surfaced. In terms of the social committee, here's a quote from the youngest member, George, about how he joined the committee. We, my mom and I, were going out, and I saw someone from the social committee hanging up Halloween decorations. I went over to her and offered to help. I helped hang it up, and another social committee member came by and she said, "Oh, you're helping out setting up the decorations. Do you want to help a little bit more? Like, do you want to join the social committee?" So I said, "Okay, I'll join the committee." And that was when I was 8. So the social committee noticed that George wanted to help and thought to invite him to join. They did not perceive his young age as an issue or as a barrier to participating as a fellow committee member, but rather as a positive addition. The second theme, growing and cultivating intergenerational community, has two sub-themes: intergenerational collaboration and older adults inviting participation. The purpose of the social committee is to plan and implement fun and meaningful events in the building. The events helped to cultivate a sense of community and encourage residents to meet and connect. The community research participants stress the importance of collaborating with people of different ages to learn how to build intergenerational relationships, to allow for complex problem solving, and to consider how to meet the social needs of age-diverse residents. Here's a quote by Jill, one community researcher, who discussed what happened when an older adult invited her to participate. Jill said in conversation with a neighbor during COVID-19, an older neighbor said, "Just come to one social committee meeting." And what I heard in the meeting that changed my mind were super engaged people. I thought about my neighbor who was saying she was socially isolated. And I thought to myself, there's probably half a dozen or more people. So we came up with the walking club. We met twice a week, and I got to know my neighbors. The personal invitation to attend one committee meeting provided Jill with the opportunity to discuss her social needs and those of her neighbors during this challenging time of the pandemic. She was struck by the community engagement of the committee members and decided to join them. There were several benefits and outcomes of intergenerational community in this multi-unit building: community and volunteer engagement, sense of community and caring, respect and care of shared spaces, social skills and social connectedness, and diversity and inclusion. I will focus on two: the sense of community and caring and the development of social skills and social connectedness. The community research participants identified benefits for individuals as well as for the collective of residents. Knowing that there's a sense of community in the building where people can reach out to others if they need help or are ill offered a sense of safety and security for everyone. Here are two quotes from GP and Arlene that illustrate their experience of the sense of community and caring in their building. GP says, I think there's a lot of respect for other people. And I think this is largely because there's so many older people. They tend to be open, and so you regularly hear, have you seen so and so? I haven't seen her for a couple of days. I haven't seen her since last week. If somebody has had down times, you kind of hear about it. Everyone knows everybody else. And Arlene says, this is our home. And since it is our home, we want to make it the best place to live. As an adult, you look at the building and say, how can I contribute or get other people to help make this the best community to live? And here are two quotes about the development of social skills for the younger residents. One is by a younger person, George, and one from a parent, Jill. Before George says, before I joined the committee, I couldn't talk to people who I didn't know, like a cashier at a store. I couldn't go up to them and say thank you. I had to walk by because I was too shy. But once I got into the social committee, I joined all these different events, met new people, talked to people who I didn't know, helped people who I didn't know. So that got me really social. Now I can go up to the cashier and say thank you so much for checking us out. And this is George, who at this time was 10 years old. Jill says, we got a message from our daughter's teacher. Our daughter stood up there, and despite not being the world's most confident speaker, she did a little mini presentation about Hanukkah. We heard about it from her teacher. She didn't tell us when she got home, so we asked her about it, and we were like, wow, that's great. This shows that having opportunities to meet and engage with neighbors of all ages provides younger residents with opportunities to socialize and boost their social confidence. The fourth theme is the role of generational cohorts. I'll focus on two sub-themes, the role of older adults and of middle-aged adults. The role of older adults include being knowledge historians of the building itself and of the local neighborhood. They have knowledge of the history of the building, of the place, of the people who live there, the staff who work there, and the history of gatherings and events. According to the community research participants, the older adults have knowledge about how to, in quotes, cultivate and maintain a sense of community and the know-how, in quotes, to co-create respectful space and place. Whereas middle-aged people in this intergenerational community appear to have the role of connector in that they act as a bridge between generations, creating access pathways between the younger and older generations. The final theme is who is missing from this intergenerational community. The final young adult residents in their 20s and 30s were not mentioned in the focus group, and participants stated that they did not know where the 20-year-olds are. However, they discussed several potential strategies to address this issue, including collaborating with the young adult residents. So, socially isolated older adults were identified as missing from events. Even with social events right in the building, older adults continued to be socially isolated. This may be an indication of structural ageism and the lack of access to broader health and social supports for older individuals. However, the community, including the property management and neighbors, is aware of individuals who may be socially isolated. In June of 2025, we celebrated the completion of the research findings and disseminated the study with a poster presentation at international conferences. In March 2026, I was invited to attend a meet and greet for residents to connect with the various committees. The atmosphere was lively and social and warm-hearted, and seemed to me to be even more intergenerational and age integrated with the attendance of several young adults. Some final thoughts and next steps. Our brief study suggests that there are several psychosocial benefits of an intergenerational and age-integrated community for individuals, including social health and social confidence for children, and socio-environmental benefits for the community. Individuals in an intergenerational community can benefit from the collective wisdom of its residents, and cultivating a resilient community offers social connectedness to its members. It's possible that age inclusion and age diversity present as gateways to other diversities and can help to promote a sense of acceptance and belonging in neighborhoods. One question that several residents and participants asked was, what was the meaning of the term intergenerational? It's an academic-oriented concept, and they had not heard it before. So question is, will the general public use this terminology? Sorry about that. Or will it choose another term? In order to address ageism and age segregation, this study suggests that opportunities for meaningful intergenerational interactions can teach us how to connect and collaborate in age-diverse groups. Individuals of every age have strengths and talents that enrich the intergenerational community. At the moment, I'm in the midst of my doctoral studies and plan to expand this research to explore intergenerational initiatives in neighborhoods in Toronto with guidance from an intergenerational advisory committee. And on a more personal note, these community research participants inspired me to collaborate with my neighbors, and we're cultivating intergenerational community with support from our board of directors and property management. I have more to share about that experience and what I've learned, and I'm happy to discuss it in our Q&A if there's interest. And I'm sharing my resources and am open to questions, comments, thoughts, and suggestions, and want to thank you for your time and attention. And please feel free to email me as well if you don't get a chance to comment today.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Ruth, for walking us through your really, I think, care-filled project. I think your care and your kind of attention and intention really rang through for me. Um, I'll maybe ask if you maybe want to just stop sharing your screen so that we can see each other a little bit better. And again, it's really wonderful to have such, I think, this is a great turnout for May. So huzzah. Um, I see that Alex already has his hand up and ready, so I will turn the floor over to Alex. But before I do that, Alex, sorry, just realizing I'll just remind folks that you are welcome to raise your hand and ask your question out loud, or if it's more comfortable for you, you can use the chat box, which is in the bottom of your screen, to type in your question to Ruth. Alex, thanks for waiting. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. I'm very curious as to where your research took into consideration extroverts and introverts. And I ask that because, the definition of being isolated, I guess, from an introvert's point of view would be I'm happy being by myself. Versus an extrovert would say, yeah, I would like to socialize more. So I'm just curious if whether that came into all in your research.
So, so that's a great question. Thank you. It didn't that specific aspect did not come up, but
Mm,
what did surface was that um, both choice and opportunity. So for people to know that there were options to participate in however way they wanted to in the community or not, and that even not participating, having the awareness and knowledge that there was community, a sense of community in the building, provided a sense of support. Now, in terms of social isolation, they were also there were concerns about people who are unwell and socially isolated, older adults who are unwell and socially isolated, and how to support them. And the issue around confidentiality came up around that, right? So, because this isn't, people are living together and privacy and confidentiality are important values for many people and for property management to uphold. So it's complex. It's not
hmm
as, it's not a simple answer.
The confidentiality aspect, was that in the the context of the research or of just the socialization? Because I don't know if I'd consider this condo a high rise. It's 15 floors, but there's three buildings. So if I were to stack them on top of each other, it would be a very tall building. Um, so yeah, I'm just curious as to, I can see how confidentiality would come into play, but I'm just wondering if that was a concern raised as part of your research or separate from it.
Uh, it it came up, the participants mentioned that the value people value their privacy
Hmm
and how much they want to share about themselves and have known about themselves.
hmm
So, and some people are more open and some people are not. So I think that's a very personal, that was a personal, that's a personal value and a personal choice and one
Sure.
to be respected. And I think that it seems that this community is aware of that tension.
Mm.
Does that answer
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand because we have that in this complex of ours too. There's always that, there are people who just prefer to be um, separated from everyone else. They want to do their own thing. They don't want to mingle. And then there are those who, hey, I'll chat with you in the laundry room or the garbage disposal room or what have you. It doesn't matter. So yeah.
You know what you're saying, it also leads me to say that the children in the building at the
Mm,
events that I attended and who were research participants talked about this and how
mm.
attending events and being taught how to socialize with neighbors was very meaningful for them and
Interesting.
important.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex. Um, I see that I think one of your cohort mates has popped a question into the chat. So I'll read that aloud. Oh, we have another one coming in. So this first question is from Maha. So just starting off with some lovely notes. Ruth, this was an absolutely beautiful presentation, and it was so lovely to get to hear all about this project. You're certainly inspiring me to perhaps take on CBPR. In your findings, she's asking, did you find any big differences, findings of note that came up linked to individuals' ethnicity? Do you anticipate there will be specific differences as well in studying different intergenerational groups across Toronto? So perhaps some immigrants, refugees, South Asians, Arabs, etc., in your doctoral work. Thanks,
Oh,
Maha.
thanks, Maha. Great question. So this building is part of a young condo corridor between two major streets, Young and Finch and Shepherd. And that community is a very diverse neighborhood. There's in addition to now becoming, there's a huge Iranian community that now lives there, Asian, South Asian. And so it's known as one of the more diverse communities in North Toronto. And I think that's a really important aspect of this. In the research group itself, the group of community researchers, there wasn't a lot of diversity in terms of ethnicity, but they spoke to how they had people who would like different holidays and different religions would be honored. And I'm trying to, for sure it was Chinese New Year
Mm,
and Holi, and I
mm,
think Ramadan as well. Hanukkah was mentioned. There were a few different holidays, and I'm sure I'm sorry I don't have them in front of me, where both an intergenerational event and a child-friendly event would be coordinated. So I think that that's really an important aspect of intergenerational communities, the diversities in the community. Um, and so I'm curious about that too. It was a brief study, a small sample. So I'll be very curious what happens as I expand this to neighborhoods in Toronto. Great question. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Pardon me. Thank you, Maha, and thank you, Ruth. Um, we have another question in the chat from Shamim. Um, so, Ruth, in your understanding, how can cultural lag and intergenerational differences exist simultaneously when cultural lag itself refers to the slower adaptation of certain age groups or social groups compared to others? And we have someone here joining us from Bangladesh.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. So, I think that it the concept of intergenerational community is a new one in neighborhoods. It has not been, um, I think people are doing the work, but it's not formalized and it's not understood as being an intergenerational community. So I think uh, that's something that kind of needs to be presented and discussed and with more opportunities like this. When I speak, and I'm going to come to cultural lag in a moment, when I speak to this to people of different ages, when I've shared this research study with people, there's a great deal of interest by all ages. People are curious about this and want to find out, how does it happen? Can we have this where I live? What can I do? Why is it not happening? And I think that, as I mentioned before, culture is a very important aspect of this. Um, and I didn't go into this focused on culture, but I think it's a very important, and also why I'm looking at a very diverse, multicultural urban center, because I think that cultures a critical aspect of this, and of social belonging and social connectedness. It's a challenge, and it's also important to research it. Thanks, Shaman.
I think Alex has obviously been percolating some queries there. So I'm not seeing any other questions for the time being. So I'm gonna head back to Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought I'd wait before I percolated my questions up again. Um, Presumably, based on what I just heard you say, the research will continue. You're planning on doing more, right? How, so you talked about multiculturalism. Are you looking at different settings, such as, for example, a NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community within a building itself? Will you be considering those?
So, yeah, that's another really important aspect. So, and NORCs are buildings where I believe 30% or more of
Roughly.
residents
Yeah.
are older adults. So, I've been asked, how do we bring intergenerational community into the NORC? How do we begin intergenerational initiatives in a NORC? And I think it's a very important question. What I'm planning to research are neighborhoods.
Mm,
And I'm looking at hubs of intergeneration, like how do intergenerational initiatives happen in neighborhoods, in diverse neighborhoods, in
hmm
varying neighborhoods of socioeconomic class and culture and ethnicity and like how does that happen? How does that work? And who's involved in that, and what supports are needed to sustain it.
hmm And just if I may, since you mentioned neighborhood, I can think of several right now in my head uh, that are Norks. You know, it's an older part of Burlington, for example, or the town of Dundas, which is not far from where I am, where there are clusters of homes within this geographic area where people, if you walk down the street, I guarantee you most of the people are gray haired like I am. So I just wondered if you, as opposed to just a neighborhood or a cultural neighborhood, are you looking at the cultural neighborhood that happens to be a NORC?
I'm looking at neighborhoods that may have NORCs.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Yes, and very likely will.
Okay.
Thanks everyone so much for your questions. I'll give folks maybe a minute or two more just to see if there's any other queries coming to mind here. Anything that you maybe wanted to share or reflect on, Ruth, before we start to kind of close off our time, or any of the, I suppose, any of the questions have sparked any other elements that you wanted to share?
So I so one thought I have is how there are individuals and neighbors and community residents who want this to happen. And so it's very grassroots, and that it also requires support, top-down support
Hmm.
from community organizations, from universities, from schools, from municipal governments, and all levels of government, essentially, to fund to provide support to this. Property management companies to know how to do this, uh, tenants associations, board of directors, needing to learn how to collaborate and how to work through issues together. I think there are a lot of different aspects to this to make it sustainable. And the recipe, I mean, this building has a recipe for it, has made it happen for themselves. But I think to have this happen in neighborhoods, and in more buildings, in vertical villages, if you will, I think we need more top-down support.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you're identifying, I suppose, like the many layers that might not be immediately visible that all need to come together in order to make this a strong, sustainable kind of venture. Alex, I see your hand, but we do have a, if you don't mind, I'll just first turn to Hadia's comment in the chat. Great presentation, Ruth, Hadia says. Have you or will you consider differences in intergenerational community activities that are organized kind of explicitly or specifically as intergenerational versus those activities that might end up kind of naturally being intergenerational?
Yeah, that so I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. I think the important aspect is engagement, is because there are a lot of places where there are people of different ages in the same place, but not necessarily engaging with each other. And that's not sustained. So I'm looking at both sustained and where there's interaction. And they may be, it might be organic or it might be planned, as you noted, but I think those are two important aspects, and whether they're able, and what makes them sustainable. What makes them sustainable? Thank you, Hadia.
Yeah, a good question. And it for me it also reveals maybe the beauty and the benefit of kind of moving a project from your MA into your PhD because it allows you a little bit of that beautiful, wonderful time to think over some of these really important questions of distinction, I suppose, and categorization.
Yes. Yes.
Um, Let us turn one last time, maybe not a last time, I'm not sure, to Alex.
I'll make sure I have two questions next time. I'm just teasing you. Um, so based on your comment, not your last comment, but the one before that, have you considered or thought about working with the CAO, which is the Condo Association organization, the the Association of Condo Managers and Management Companies, because I see how this could be valuable to that organization in how do I take this material and create situations where people can work together, collaborate together, socialize together. I realize this is an intergenerational study, but one could also look at a study between the different cultural um, aspects. So East Asian, South Asian, Caucasian, um, Middle Eastern, because I look at our community over here, we now have a much more diverse group of people. And I'm starting to see clusters of Caucasians, clusters of South Asians, and so on, as opposed to them mingling. They're sort of staying in their own lane. So I'm just curious.
So great suggestion. That's a great suggestion. One of the surprises of this research was that it was that the building that was identified was a condominium. I
Mm,
I was expecting, or I suspected that it would be a cooperative
mm,
where there's already intergenerational and it's a collective. So it was really interesting to me that it was a condominium that was identified.
hmm
And yes, I think that property management companies across the board, apartment rent, market rentals, and condominiums and um, uh, uh, co-ops,
Hmm.
as well as board of directors. I think board of directors would across all housing types, housing models would benefit too.
Hmm.
Um, there's often a tension between prop value, property value and community or people. And so I think this research shows the value of um, creating intentional community, intergenerational community, and how that supports or maybe even helps property value,
Hmm.
right? Uh,
Interesting.
and yeah, so I think that the issue of culture is one that has come up a few times today, and I think I will definitely explore it with my PhD research. It's a very important. It's like many people have brought it up,
Hmm.
and I think it shows how important it is. So I will definitely focus on it. Not sure how yet,
Hmm.
but I will. Stay tuned.
Definitely. We'll have to have you back, Ruth,
Let
maybe.
me know if I can help.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, Ruth, it seems to me that we might have to have you back maybe as you're maybe closer to the completion of your PhD as a bit of a follow-up because there's obviously an appetite for seeing where this goes.
I'd love to.
Um, just taking a look at the time, I just wanted to say a thank you to everyone for joining us today and for really actively participating in the discussion period. Also, a really big thanks to Ruth for so kind of graciously, wow,
Mhm.
sharing results and findings with us. Um, and yeah, it's been a wonderful Gilbert seminar series for this academic year. And I guess stay tuned, everyone, for what our next year's theme will entail. Take good care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.